On the day of my wedding with President Gu, his cherished Omega found me backstage, tears glistening in his eyes as he implored me to grant his wish. He proposed that I take him as my wife while he assumes the role of a concubine, with him as the resident companion and me as the true home. He sought no formal recognition, only the chance to remain by the side of his beloved Alpha for eternity. I gently wiped his tears away and leaned in to whisper seductively in his ear. Gu Haochen has more than a dozen lovers. Would you consider being with me? I am also an Alpha, committed to a one-on-one relationship. 1. Omega's eyes glistened with unshed tears, the delicate fringes of his lashes adorned with glistening droplets, wavering on the brink of falling. Do not blame him. It is I who should not have come. I merely wished to catch one last glimpse of him. Gu Haochen regarded me with an icy stare, declaring, Du Zhizhua, I have already consented to marry you. There is no need for you to make things difficult for Tang Tang, who said I intended to complicate matters for him. I approached gracefully, 2 fingers delicately placing my pheromone-laden business card into Omega's pocket, leaning in to whisper in his ear. Gu Haochen has over a dozen Tang Tangs. Would you consider being with me? I have no one by my side, and I prefer a one-on-one relationship. The implications of this statement were too profound, leaving Omega momentarily stunned, tears suspended in his eyes. Gu Haochen's expression darkened as he warned, Du Zhizhua, he is mine. Very well, I replied, raising my hands in a gesture of surrender, smiling at him. Since you are so gracious, I shall reluctantly accept. Gu Haochen, puzzled, inquired, accept what? I flashed a grin, 20 million. Only then did Gu Haochen recall the matter, a flicker of frustration crossing his gaze. 2. Gu Haochen harbored a beloved named Tang Tang, a radiant moonlight that, after its fall, left him searching for countless substitutes. As for me, Du Zhizhua, an Alpha with a penchant for collecting beauties, a 3-time award-winning actor, I changed partners every fortnight, whether Omega or Beta, Lofty Blossoms or Neighborhood Boys, ensuring no two were ever alike. We were notorious in the Beijing circle as the ultimate playboys, yet also bitter rivals. Our paths had never crossed until a marriage contract unexpectedly landed before us. Gu Haochen's grandmother was diagnosed with a blood disorder, with doctors predicting she had at most a year and a half left to live. In a peculiar turn of events, she drafted a will bequeathing her vast fortune, amounting to hundreds of billions, to both Gu Haochen and me, contingent upon our marriage and procreation. Yes, you read that correctly, 2 alphas, Gu Haochen and I, marrying and having children. How absurd. However, upon hearing this news, my father retrieved me from a gathering of friends and solemnly informed me that after 25 years of indulgence, it was time for me to contribute to the family. My scandalous personal life, which had allowed me to thrive in the industry, was solely due to my father's protection. Now, he warned that, if I did not comply, he would blacklist me. All my commitments were abruptly cancelled, roles reassigned, shows withdrawn, and endorsements terminated. My manager was dispatched to Europe for a 2-year paid sabbatical, while my assistant tearfully accepted a 2 million severance package, wishing me luck in having twins within 3 years. I drove to a bar to lament to my confidant, indulging in a few cocktails, only to discover that even my card had been frozen, with my friend covering the bill. Bowing to my father's wishes, I reluctantly agreed to meet Gu Haochen. His situation was no better. His company faced a grave crisis, and should he go bankrupt, he would lose even the means to support his little white lotus. Thus, with a grim countenance, we sat opposite each other in a cafe beneath his office. I attempted to mend our relationship, mustering a smile, only to be interrupted by him. A marriage of convenience. We'll part ways once the inheritance is secured. During the marriage, we shall not interfere with each other. I will give you 5 billion. I feigned a smile. Without me, this would merely become a charitable organization. 70-30. No more. Deal. Gu Haochen introduced me to his grandmother, who inexplicably took a liking to me, grasping my hand and examining me from every angle, even giving my backside a playful pat. I raised an eyebrow, while Gu Haochen reveled in my discomfort. When she inquired about our views on the marriage, I expressed my eagerness. So, she asked with concern, have you decided who will bear the children? Gu Haochen and I answered in unison. We paused, exchanging glances. I beheld him, sharp brows, striking eyes, a straight nose, and thin lips, a visage both strikingly handsome and emotionally aloof, features carved with precision. He regarded me, my androgynous beauty captivating, my eyes gleaming with a vibrant light, lips curved in an unspoken smile, a faint beauty mark adorning my lower lip, always stirring the hearts of those around me. Once again we spoke in unison, The grandmother erupted in laughter, proclaiming that we shared an unspoken understanding. She then hinted that we should mend our past and focus on our marriage, nurturing our husbandly bond, playfully suggesting that whoever could not suppress their playful heart should bear the children, or alternatively, compensate the other with 20 million. See, the 20 million has arrived. 3. Throughout the wedding, the little Omega did not reappear, yet Gu Haochen ultimately could not sever ties with me entirely, as he maintained a facade of deep affection with each of his substitutes, leaving the door ajar for possibilities. After the wedding, I sought the 2 million from Gu Haochen. He appeared displeased but reluctantly penned me a check. Gu was unaware that his company's financial troubles rendered him incapable of disbursing such an amount. I refused, casting a suggestive glance his way, or perhaps you. With a resigned sigh, he summoned the little Omega, inquiring about his opinion of me. The little Omega cast a shy glance my way, bashfully affirming his approval. Gu Haochen nodded and said to me, "Yes, even with you now. Damn this despicable playboy." I lowered my gaze, contemplating, "Brother, this is not my fault. Gu Haochen intended to offer his little Omega to me, so we could both claim to have someone on the side, thus nullifying the issue of the 2 million. Of course, this plan fell through, as the events of the wedding had circulated. His grandmother arrived to reprimand him, and upon finding the little Omega preparing for a trio, her nostrils flared in indignation as she brandished her cane, shooing him away, before compelling Gu Haochen to hand over the 2 million to me. I accepted it with a smile. Gu Haochen, crimson with rage, retorted, "What makes him any better? He has just as many people outside as I do. But he has severed ties completely." The grandmother turned to scold him. "Once married, one should settle down. How could you still be sending him people? I must remind you, if the children are not yours, I shall not recognize them." After the grandmother's admonishment, Gu Haochen shot me a glare before attempting to leave. Queried, "Where are you going?" Gu Haochen frowned. "You must understand, our marriage is solely for my grandmother's inheritance. I have already promised you to remain faithful during our marriage. Do not expect too much." With that, he departed, a chill emanating from him as he strode out of the marital home. On our wedding night, he left me alone in an empty room. At least he has some sense. I took out my phone, added the little Omega's contact information, introduced myself, and inquired after his well-being, while also transferring him 3 million. Though we cannot be companions, we can at least be friends. I apologize for today. Here, buy yourself a nice bag, tang tang. The little Omega responded with delight, sending me an abundance of puppy emoji. For having lost face in front of the grandmother on our wedding day, Gu Haochen sought to make amends elsewhere. During our first family banquet post-marriage, he was absent, and the grandmother instructed me to fetch him. Upon calling, a friend of his answered, informing me that Haochen was drinking and inquiring who I was. I could hear Gu Haochen's voice on the line, who said getting married means I can't go out and have fun. He sounded rather cheerful. I grinned at his friend, stating that I was sent to retrieve him on the grandmother's orders, obtained the address, and called for a driver to head over. Upon arrival, I encountered a classic scene. The private room was undoubtedly filled with Gu Haochen's circle of friends, and he was likely embracing a little fling while drinking. How affluent, or rather, how amusing. As I pondered over the second 20 million, I smiled and pushed open the door to the nightclub's private room. The atmosphere inside was thick with smoke, where a group of lavishly dressed yet indistinct individuals encircled Gu Haochen and the person nestled in his embrace. Upon closer inspection, it was none other than the enchanting beauty, Tang Tang. I couldn't help but let out a sigh. "Who is this?" someone inquired. He did not recognize me, though the others were well aware of my identity. "Oh, isn't this our sister-in-law?" The one who answered my call quickly connected the dots and, eager to defend Gu Haochen, rose to greet me. "Sister-in-law, rest assured, Haochen is in our care. He hasn't done anything." I smiled and nodded. Before the words had fully left his mouth, Gu Haochen wrapped an arm around the little Omega's waist, drawing him closer. "Your sister-in-law is right here." Suddenly, the atmosphere in the room turned palpably awkward. It appeared that Gu Haochen was confident I wouldn't be able to extract any money from him this time, and was prepared to give me a frosty reception. However, the little Omega immediately stood up, his eyes sparkling as he greeted me. "Zhizhua Gu, come sit here." Gu Haochen's expression darkened significantly. See, the effect of 3 million was already in play. "No, thank you." I smiled and shook my head, then turned to Gu Haochen. "Grandma asked me to bring you home for dinner." Gu Haochen pulled the little Omega back into his embrace, Can't you see I'm busy? Tang Tang is about to study abroad. This is the last gathering we friends prepared for him. You wouldn't be so inconsiderate as to cause a scene, would you? The little Omega stood up again, tugging on his arm. The gathering is over. You should head home now, go on. Gu Haochen shot a glare at the little Omega, causing me to chuckle softly. How amusing. Tang Tang is also my friend, I said, moving closer to sit beside the little Omega. I'll have a word with Grandma. Let me accompany you to see him off. At this, the little Omega beamed with joy, clearly feeling proud to have both Gu Haochen and me by his side. The remaining individuals in the room were utterly baffled by our exchange, staring blankly at the little Omega and me as we chatted amiably. What a spectacle! I was charming and eloquent, while the little Omega radiated delight, and Gu Haochen sat nearby, drowning his sorrows in drink, resembling a woeful figure beneath a green cloud. He seemed to forget that I was an alpha, indeed a sea king. I knew precisely how to strike with unerring accuracy. I had already learned that the little Omega's father was a gambler, deeply indebted to loan sharks to the tune of several million. He had been with Gu Haochen for a year, who supported him, protected him, and provided for his education, yet had never mentioned helping him pay off the debts. Did Gu Haochen truly lack the means to settle the few million? Did he lack the ability to prevent the little Omega's father from gambling? No. It was evident that Gu Haochen intended to use this situation to maintain control over the little Omega, compelling him to act as a substitute. Initially, the little Omega was unaware, but when Gu Haochen refused to pay the 20 million and attempted to placate me with him, the little Omega understood. Thus, I offered the little Omega 3 million. During his time with Gu Haochen, he had only received a few handbags, and now he realized he could use the money I gave him to cover his tuition abroad as a parting gift. With those 3 million in hand, he could distance himself from his unfortunate family and Gu Haochen, completing his studies and leading a fulfilling life. Naturally, the little Omega's heart inclined toward me. After several drinks, Gu Haochen, noticing the little Omega engrossed in conversation with me, grew increasingly agitated. His eyes flickered, perhaps recalling his deceased first love. To him, it was unthinkable that his first love would smile at other men for mere trifles. The atmosphere grew tense, prompting the group of friends to quickly seek their excuses and disperse. Gu Haochen, thoroughly intoxicated, was accompanied with some concern by the little Omega, who assisted me in getting him back to the car before bidding me farewell. He sincerely expressed his gratitude. I managed to bring Gu Haochen home and briefly recounted the events to the elderly matriarch before taking him into the bedroom to look after him. He reeked of alcohol, his hair disheveled, and his shirt hanging loosely, appearing rather disheveled as he collapsed onto the bed. The moonlight streamed through the window, casting a pale glow on his complexion. I lowered my gaze to the shadows cast by his eyelashes in the hollows of his eyes, observing his restlessly fluttering eyelids, the striking curve of his nose, and his tightly pressed lips, remarkably handsome yet curiously cold. I settled beside him, raising my gaze to the solitary white moon in the deep blue sky. A rustle beside me signaled Gu Haochen sitting up. His eyes burned with intensity as he gazed at me, caught between clarity and intoxication. Is everything as you wish? Suddenly, he lunged forward, pinning me onto the bed, one hand cradling the back of my head, his breath ragged, kissing me with an almost feverish intensity, his lips trembling against mine before prying my teeth apart, seeking to conquer. His fervor was somewhat amusing, and I indulged his entanglement, curious to see when he would come to his senses. Tang Tang, he mumbled incoherently. Tang, you bastard. I swiftly flipped him over, seized his arm, yanked off his tie, and bound his hands to the headboard. His eyes glistened with confusion and vulnerability as he looked at me. I've long desired to do this. I licked my lips, focusing on his exposed, toned abdomen beneath his open shirt, reaching my hand up, then down. This is your own doing, I told him. I spent the night with Gu Haochen 5, 6, 7, 8 times. When morning came, he attempted to strangle me, and I pinched his waist, causing him to wail in despair. Our agreement did not specify who would bear the child. I reasoned with him. If you can't have me, it's because of your own inadequacy. Can't I have you? It's not that I don't want to, Gu Haochen retorted. I am entirely Tang Tang's. Ha! 17 or 18 Tang Tangs. I found it amusing. The noise we made that night was rather significant, and the Gu family became aware of it. Yet the sounds that escaped were sufficiently muffled. They had no idea who was in charge. As I dressed to get out of bed, Gu Haochen, fearing he would miss something if he got up later than me, gritted his teeth and tidied himself up, insisting on leaving together. Wait for him? I swung open the bedroom door, only to be met by the scrutinizing gazes of Zhang Ma, Wang Jie, and Aunt Li at the door. Young master. Grandma? Zhang Ma hesitated on how to address me, finally settling on Master Du. The matriarch says if you're feeling unwell, you can sleep a bit longer. I am not unwell. I smiled brightly, allowing them to scrutinize me. Zhang Ma's eyes widened in shock, and the three of them exchanged glances, then turned their gazes toward Gu Haochen, who followed closely behind me. Young master. I am not unwell either, Gu Haochen replied darkly. The three exchanged puzzled looks. Then, the atmosphere grew tense, with no one daring to speak further. Zhang Ma, Wang Jie, and Aunt Li quickly grasped the situation, diligently laying soft cushions on each chair at the dining table. I sat on the cushion, gazing at the red date, red bean, and brown sugar porridge in my hands, lost in thought. Gu Haochen should not be so reckless. I observed him standing in the garden, pale-faced as he listened to the matriarch speak, beads of sweat forming at his temples, and I wanted to suggest he take a rest. But as I took a couple of steps forward, he noticed my movement and cast a venomous glare in my direction. How foolishly he clung to his pride. The matriarch, noticing my pallor, kindly remarked, "Today was meant for you two to rest well, but Ling Hua has returned and insists on meeting you." Gu Haochen's expression softened, an involuntary smile breaking through. Ling Hua, huh? My heart sank. Alas, what kind of performance is this? From a distance, I heard a distant call of cousin, and a petite figure came rushing toward us. Gu Haochen turned around, instinctively opening his arms as the figure leaped in a cartoonish manner, aiming to dive into his embrace amidst the swirling flower petals. Such a leap could potentially leave Gu Haochen quite shattered. Reacting swiftly, I positioned myself between the newcomer and Gu Haochen, extending my arm in a friendly gesture to shake hands. Hello. The newcomer was a fair-skinned, delicate young Omega, who, upon seeing my outstretched hand, did not reciprocate but halted, her bright eyes darting around before settling on me with a look of surprise. Who are you? I am Du Jiju. Oh, you are the alpha that my cousin married to have children, the young Omega replied, seemingly innocent and carefree. Ling Hua, Gu Haochen admonished, yet did not deny it. The Omega named Ling Hua beamed with pride and shot me a glare. I withdrew my hand and stepped aside, and with a skip, she bounded to Gu Haochen, wrapping her arms around his neck. Brother Haochen. The slight weight of her body made Gu Haochen's face pale. He had to follow the mood, embracing her waist and spinning her around 3 times before setting her down, his legs slightly trembling. Serves him right. As soon as Ling Hua touched the ground, she linked her arm with Gu Haochen's. Brother Haochen, didn't you say it was just Tang Tang? Didn't you vow to withstand the world's gaze and never marry? Reminiscing about Tang Tang with me? The elderly lady's expression soured. Ling Hua, your words have become increasingly outrageous. Your great-grandmother instructed me not to indulge you any further. If you continue to speak so recklessly about your brother Haochen, I shall send you back to France. Grandma, while the elderly lady chastised Ling Hua, the latter clung to Gu Haochen's arm, and Gu Haochen looked down at her with a gaze filled with affection. The atmosphere among the three was harmonious, leaving me feeling somewhat out of place. Still in a daze, I caught a sidelong glance from Ling Hua, who leaned her head on Gu Haochen's arm, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Ah, a blunt and straightforward little darling. I offered him a warm smile, thinking to myself, splendid, another 20 million. The elderly lady took Ling Hua to the villa to inspect the rooms, and I seized the opportunity to drag Gu Haochen into the bathroom. Gu Haochen seemed obstinate for reasons unknown. Despite his current display of agility, I knew he felt pain between his legs. While I intended to leave a lasting impression, I did not wish to see him so stiff and swollen. As he attempted to strike me, I pressed my arm against his back, pinning him against the wall. Du Jiju, what do you intend to do? Gu Haochen's face turned pale. I leaned closer, exhaling warm breath into his ear. Guess. Sensing the tension in his muscles, my fingers deftly and swiftly inserted a painkiller into the wound. Gu Haochen erupted in a fit of curses. You? I covered his mouth. The elderly lady and your cousin should be nearby. Are you sure you want to summon them here? Gu Haochen's body stiffened, and I twirled the medication at his injury, moving in circles. His thigh trembled, veins bulging at his temples, and his fists clenched tighter. Enough. I withdrew my fingers just as he seemed poised to retaliate before I could escape. Gu Haochen dressed quickly, exiting the bathroom ahead of me and slamming the door behind him, nearly colliding with my nose. I rarely resorted to coercion, But I must admit, witnessing Gu Haochen's fury was a source of great amusement. As I observed him stride away, I followed suit with light-hearted steps. "Cousin, I want to live here," Linghua announced, standing at the entrance of the master bedroom, pointing at the European-style bed with a gleeful expression, exuding an air of arrogance. The elderly lady interjected, "This is Haochen and Jiju's new home. How could you be so inconsiderate?" Linghua glanced at me, raised an eyebrow, and persisted. "The light and ventilation in this room are excellent. My lungs aren't well, and I need to recuperate. What's wrong with staying for a few days?" Gu Haochen's expression darkened. I was unsure how indulgent he typically was toward this cousin for her to speak with such entitlement. But something had recently transpired in this room that Gu Haochen would prefer to keep from anyone's knowledge. "No, I will arrange another room for you," Gu Haochen firmly refused. Linghua's expression shifted dramatically. "Brother Haochen, how could you?" With her head bowed, she displayed a tearful expression. "If Tang Tang were still here, he would never allow you to treat me this way. Tang Tang was always so good to me. He feared my illness and would have been by my side without me having to ask." Her pitiful demeanor had a certain charm, if not for the resentful glances she cast my way while speaking. Her words evidently struck a chord with Gu Haochen. His demeanor softened, yet due to certain unspeakable matters, he did not relent immediately. "Linghua, how about you reconsider?" I interjected. "This bed is quite spacious." "What?" Gu Haochen looked at me, puzzled. I elaborated. "It can accommodate 3 people. Both Gu Haochen and Linghua were momentarily taken aback. "I can be by your cousin's side to take care of you," I said with a beaming smile, subtly releasing a hint of agave pheromones. "Linghua, being unwell, makes me uneasy. 2 people caring for you is certainly better than 1. Linghua hesitated for a moment, stammering, "Teach 3 people?" The elderly lady let out a laugh, promptly pulling Linghua away. "You haven't seen Grandma in ages. Why not stay in the room next to me? The young ones know nothing. I've been ill for so long that I've become adept at caring for others." Once the elderly lady and Linghua had departed, Gu Haochen turned back to me, looking at me with disdain. "Do not think you can win my favor through such means." I blinked a couple of times, not quite understanding. "No matter how much you imitate," Gu Haochen scoffed, walking past me, "you are not Tang Tang." Damn it. In the following days, the blunt and straightforward cousin Linghua began to devise various ways to vex me. These included, but were not limited to, deliberately preparing dishes that Tang Tang had once made for Gu Haochen and reminiscing about their shared life at the dinner table. Intercepting Gu Haochen mid-conversation with a kite they had flown together during the elderly lady's reprimands. Feigning nightmares at night, calling out Tang Tang's name, and crying to coax Gu Haochen into comforting her. Accusing me of breaking the crystal ball that Tang Tang had gifted to Gu Haochen. Taking Gu Haochen around the city in search of a similar crystal ball. Awakening memories of his sweet past with Tang Tang at every turn. Gu Haochen, already deeply troubled, became even more unhinged under Linghua's antics. Initially, he regarded me with mere disdain, but now his gaze brimmed with resentment, as if I had been responsible for Tang Tang's demise. These tactics were hardly sophisticated. Most of the time, I simply observed Linghua's antics with amusement, unaware that Gu Haochen was genuinely affected by them. One day, as I was about to descend the stairs, I spotted Linghua in a corner, weeping, while Gu Haochen held her close with a pained expression. "You promised never to marry," Linghua sniffled. "How could you forget the past between me, you, and Tang Tang?" Gu Haochen sighed deeply, soothing Linghua as he spoke the truth softly. "You do not understand. The situation with the Gu family is dire at present. We have suffered losses in nearly every venture these past few years, and our financial chain is on the verge of collapse. How could this be? I must secure funds from the elderly lady to maintain the current state of the Gu family." I could not be bothered to hear more. I tapped the stair railing to give them some privacy before continuing my descent, uncertain whether Linghua believed it. His instances of stirring up trouble had diminished somewhat since that day, yet he remained somewhat melancholic. The elderly lady, eager to witness the fruits of my union with Gu Haochen, incessantly contrived opportunities for us to deepen our affections, even going so far as to forcibly arrange for us to attend social galas as a married couple. When the waltz began, neither Gu Haochen nor I would concede to dance the lady's part, gritting our teeth in defiance, resulting in a performance that resembled a brawl. Our legs became entangled, and amidst the gaze of the assembly, we fell, culminating in an idle drama-esque kiss. Linghua immediately lost his composure, bellowing at Gu Haochen, "Have you forgotten our past? before fleeing the banquet hall. I found him by the poolside, where he put on a classic display. He glared at me, saying fiercely, "Do you believe that my cousin will save me, but not you?" The moment Gu Haochen appeared in his line of sight, he seized me and together we plunged into the pool. Water splashed everywhere as he cried out, "Cousin, help me, help me." Gu Haochen, in a frenzy, dashed over, but the poolside was slippery. He lost his footing and fell awkwardly, rolling onto the ground in pain. Linghua gulped down water, panicking as he began to sink. Meanwhile, I leisurely swam over to him and rescued him from beneath the surface. That night, beneath the moonlight, as Linghua opened his eyes, he found himself bathed in lunar radiance, gazing at me with a countenance as enchanting as a siren's. Water dripped from my hair, coursing down my chin, collarbone, and gliding over my well-defined chest and abdomen. Our heated bodies pressed together in the cold water. Linghua became entranced once more, then suddenly had a nosebleed. His fingers trembled as they brushed against my lips. I chuckled softly, "Are you taken with me?" Gu Haochen's furious voice erupted behind me. "Linghua, what are you doing?" Only then did Linghua come to his senses, his face paling drastically. Gu Haochen, still seething with anger, abandoned both Linghua and me, limping away towards the banquet hall. Linghua scrambled out of the pool, hastily pursuing him. Cousin, you've misunderstood. I didn't mean to." I emerged from the water, wringing out my clothes with a casual air, following along. I overheard Linghua confessing his feelings to Gu Haochen in front of the elderly lady and several other guests. "Cousin, I'm not interested in him. The one I desire is you. I like you. I have always liked you." Gu Haochen, upon seeing me, suddenly quivered. "Oh dear." I placed my hands in my pockets, leaning against the doorframe with a smile. "Thank you, Mr. Gu. Would you prefer cash or a bank transfer?" Gu Haochen appeared to have little money left, as he promptly rejected Linghua's affections. "Linghua, you are my cousin, and Tang Tang considers you a brother." "That's not true. You must have feelings for me too," Linghua insisted, shaking his head fervently. "I won't usurp Tang Tang's place. I just wish to reminisce about him with you. Only the two of us remember him in this world." This perspective was so peculiar that Gu Haochen momentarily found himself at a loss. Linghua seized the opportunity to throw his arms around Gu Haochen's neck. Gu Haochen recoiled, slipping and falling. Linghua landed squarely in his embrace, kissing him directly on the lips. "Oh dear," gasped the guests in unison. Gu Haochen's grandmother turned pale, fainting on the spot. The elderly lady was admitted to the hospital, but fortunately, no serious harm was done. Gu Haochen and Linghua knelt by her bedside, as she, with tear-filled eyes, grasped my hand, repeatedly lamenting the misfortunes of our family and the grievances I had endured. Perhaps due to the cold water, my nose felt dry, and an inexplicable restlessness stirred in my chest. Yet, I responded with a smile, "It's not a grievance. Isn't their compensation?" Thus, the elderly lady decreed that Gu Haochen must send Linghua away within 2 days and pay me 40 million as an apology. Gu Haochen was taken aback. He didn't even wish to part with 20 million, let alone 40. "Grandmother, this has nothing to do with me. It was Linghua's own doing." The elderly lady interrupted him. "If it weren't for your entanglement with him, causing misunderstandings, he wouldn't have come to you after your marriage. The trouble you've stirred requires you to compensate for Linghua as well." Gu Haochen clenched his teeth, suddenly glaring at me. I felt utterly wronged. This time, I had done nothing. Linghua protested. "Grandmother, why must you insist on having my cousin marry someone with the surname Du? Can't I inherit your legacy with my cousin?" The elderly lady, nearly fainting from anger, retorted. "You know he is your cousin. You share blood ties." Linghua stubbornly replied. "It's been 3 generations." The elderly lady, in a fit of rage, grabbed a nearby cup of water and hurled it in Linghua's direction. "Look at your pitiful self. How can I face your great-grandmother in the future?" Linghua dodged the cup but was still frightened, sobbing quietly. Amidst the chaos, Gu Haochen suddenly regained his composure and calmly posed a crucial question to the elderly lady. "Why him?" The elderly lady paused, glanced at me, and then sighed deeply. She recounted a tale from the past, revealing that 60 years prior, the Gu family had faced near annihilation, and it was my grandfather who had painstakingly navigated connections, sacrificing half their fortune to save the family. The elderly lady, grateful to my family, wished to unite our families, but to her dismay, both branches had produced only alphas, And the next generation continued the trend. My days are numbered, and I simply wish to fulfill this wish of mine. She gazed at Gu Haochen. You too may pursue what you desire, without concern for this old woman. Just know that I will donate my estate, accumulating merit for a more comfortable existence in my next life. Upon hearing this, Ling Hua rushed to Gu Haochen. Cousin, we don't want this money. Let us cherish Tang Tang together. He wouldn't want you to be with anyone else. Gu Haochen, with a face full of conflict, knelt on the ground, motionless. Cousin, Ling Hua, you must go. Cannot see you again. Indeed, that was a staggering 1 billion. Stepping out of the hospital room, Gu Haochen coldly remarked, Don't assume everything will transpire as you wish. I nodded, refraining from retort. Ling Hua still attempted to cling to Gu Haochen, but Gu Haochen, enraged by the disaster Ling Hua had caused, left him behind and strode away. Witnessing Gu Haochen's resolute silhouette, Ling Hua finally shed tears. I stood behind him, timely offering a handkerchief. Upon seeing my face, Ling Hua recalled his earlier indiscretion at the pool, which led him to recklessly confess his feelings to Gu Haochen, and in frustration, he tossed the handkerchief to the ground. Don't think you've won. My cousin and Tang Tang were together for 4 years. No one can replace his position in my cousin's heart. He is the one my cousin loves most and the only one he has ever loved. The sense of impatience intensified. An uncontrollable malice crept upon me like a swarm of ants, silently enveloping my heart. I chuckled lightly. Then why haven't they married? Ling Hua was taken aback. Gu Haochen, now 27, was certainly of an age suitable for marriage. His parents had passed away, and there were no barriers between him and Tang Tang. I added, for years, if they had acted swiftly, a child could have already been born. If Gu Haochen loved him so dearly, why haven't they wed? Ling Hua fell silent, seemingly lost in reminiscence. His hands unconsciously clenching and releasing, hesitating to speak, ultimately saying not a word. The moonlight shimmered, streaming through the hospital corridor's windows, casting elongated shadows of 2 emaciated figures upon the dreary floor, rendering the scene beneath the moonlight cold and insipid, akin to a flawed print. I remarked, You've considered this too, haven't you? Gu Haochen loves Tang Tang, yet that doesn't prevent him from feeling that Tang Tang is unworthy of him. Gu Haochen looked down upon Tang Tang, and even Ling Hua shared the same disdain. Consequently, Ling Hua, indifferent to the situation, could exploit Tang Tang to deal with the newcomers surrounding Gu Haochen. Ling Hua gritted his teeth, clearly filled with resentment. I pierced through his facade. If even the moonlight is so fickle, what chance do you believe you have, merely lingering in the reflected glow, to walk alongside him? The elderly lady left Ling Hua at the hospital while I returned to the villa. Gu Haochen was seated on the living room sofa, indulging in alcohol. By the time I entered, a multitude of empty bottles lay haphazardly at his feet. His excessive drinking led me to suspect he sought to escape my pursuit for 40 million. Thus I approached, settling beside him. Pay up. Before my words had fully escaped my lips, Gu Haochen snatched his phone, furiously tapping at it, before tossing it at me. I picked it up to find the balance insufficient. This elicited a mirthful irritation from me. Are you trying to dodge your debts? I grasped Gu Haochen's ankle. His body was languid, one leg draped carelessly over the sofa. He lifted his gaze, his eyelashes fluttering gently, his eyes hazy as they met mine. The restlessness in my chest became palpably intense. While awaiting his response, an impulsive urge to lick and kiss his eyelashes surged within me. Gu Haochen met my gaze for a moment before closing his eyes again, surrendering to the sofa's embrace. Are you drunk? I inquired. He chuckled softly, how amusing. So he wasn't intoxicated. I nestled against the sofa cushion, the leather creaking beneath me. Gu Haochen shielded his face with his arm, yet did not push me away, beginning to ramble. Our absurd marriage is merely to fulfill the ludicrous wish of the old lady. But I actually married you, not Tang Tang. I cohabited with Tang Tang abroad for 4 years. Those days spent together were the happiest of my life. He is an exceptionally kind and considerate person, born in the most impoverished neighborhood, yet with a pure heart and resilient character. He remained oblivious to my true identity, viewing me only as an ordinary international student. I never intentionally deceived him. I merely gave some money to a beggar in the square, borrowed his guitar to play, and Tang Tang happened to pass by, mistaking me for a destitute individual. He offered me 100 yuan and even gifted me a bouquet. We resided in a very small apartment with no living room, just a bed. There was no air conditioning. In winter, we would embrace each other for warmth. When our living expenses fell short, we would buy some affordable ingredients and cook for ourselves. He worked multiple jobs to present me with birthday gifts, and he would joyfully accept the roses I folded from paper. When Ling Hua came to find me, he treated him with utmost care, considering him like a younger brother. I should have married him, I should have. Gu Haochen's voice gradually faded, his hand slipping from the sofa's edge. Moonlight illuminated the wrist protruding from his sleeve, the bone stark and devoid of color. Looking further down, his fingers were long and elegant, the shadows between them inviting curiosity. I took Gu Haochen's hand and brought it close to my nose. The scent of alcohol, the crispness of cold springs, and his pheromones enveloped me. The suppressed heat within me ignited, my eyes reddening, and my neck began to throb. I softly asked Gu Haochen, "Do you still remember Tang Tang's name?" Time seemed to stretch indefinitely, until at last, a murmur broke the silence. Du Chutang. Du Chutang, my brother. Gu Haochen booked a flight ticket for Ling Hua back to Country F, and Ling Hua erupted in a fit of rage. Yet Gu Haochen remained unmoved. The sudden shift in my cousin's demeanor left Ling Hua unsettled. Unwilling to accept defeat, he had no choice but to adopt a submissive stance, insisting that Gu Haochen personally escort him to the airport. Gu Haochen, wary of the 40 million, insisted I accompany him in the car to the airport. The driver and bodyguard occupied the front seats, while Gu Haochen and I sat in the back, with Ling Hua brooding between us. "Why is he coming?" Ling Hua complained, curling his fingers, one hand clinging to Gu Haochen's arm. Having been chastised by the elderly lady, he had subdued his earlier arrogance, yet the instinct to lean on his cousin remained. However, the veil of their cousinly bond had been torn asunder, rendering all physical contact laden with ulterior motives. Gu Haochen brushed Ling Hua's hand off his arm. "She is your sister-in-law, of course. She can come." I refrained from commenting on the title of sister-in-law. Ling Hua, disheartened, slumped his shoulders and sank into the backseat cushions. Up to this point, all seemed relatively calm, until I noticed the dwindling buildings outside, replaced increasingly by trees that was not the route to the airport. I gazed in shock at Gu Haochen, who returned my bewildered stare, evidently as unaware of this turn of events as I was. Just as I prepared to voice my thoughts, the bodyguard in the front seat barked, "Don't move." In an instant, chaos erupted. The car halted in a desolate area. Under the threat of 2 guns, the driver bound the 3 of us, Ling Hua, Gu Haochen, and myself, before ushering us into a derelict building. I could not discern whether these 2 were seeking revenge or riches, and thus made no attempt at resistance. Gu Haochen, however, scoffed at the situation, only to receive a couple of punches for his efforts. I cautioned him that acting recklessly might provoke the assailants. An alpha's strength, after all, could not withstand the deadly precision of bullets. Ling Hua's face drained of color, beads of sweat trickling down his brow. Gu Haochen consoled him, assuring him that it was merely a kidnapping, and that the situation was not as dire as he imagined. We were taken to the rooftop, where the bodyguard kept a watchful eye on us, while the driver made a phone call, seemingly to the elderly lady of the Gu family. 300 million. I want cash, unmarked, ready for me by 3 o'clock this afternoon, and no police. I scoffed. You clearly have no idea how large a sum 300 million in cash is. My words were cut short as the bodyguard landed a punch in my stomach, forcing me to double over in pain. Ling Hua flinched and Gu Haochen frowned, stepping back to protect him and creating distance between us. How foolish, I thought. Indeed, the conversation on the other end of the line must have addressed this issue. As the driver responded with a menacing tone, "I don't care how you manage it, but I must see the money by 3 o'clock. After listening to whatever was said, the driver replied, "All right," and then hung up. The wind on the rooftop was fierce, making it difficult for me to maintain my footing. Gu Haochen shielded Ling Hua, but the chill creeping into my chest felt as if a gust of cold wind had penetrated my very being, leaving me with a sense of emptiness and desolation. The driver began to scrutinize the space between me and Ling Hua, his expression decidedly sinister. Ling Hua shrank away, seeking refuge behind Gu Haochen, who stood tall and coldly confronted the driver. "What do you want?" The driver stepped forward, producing a sharp knife and pressing it against Gu Haochen's chest. Gu Haochen's expression shifted to one of alarm. Yet, the driver merely severed the ropes binding Gu Haochen. The old lady said, "Time is short. I can take 2 billion now and let 2 of you go." Facing Gu Haochen's incredulous gaze, the driver insidiously added, "Young Master Gu, you decide who gets to leave." This scenario was so archetypal that it rendered me incapable of laughter, and I turned my gaze directly to Ling Hua. Upon locking eyes with me, Ling Hua immediately averted his gaze, filled with guilt. This foolish boy, how could Gu Haochen possibly choose him? I bore the weight of 1 billion. As expected, Gu Haochen hesitated, looking toward Ling Hua. He began, Ling Hua, perhaps you. Fearing he might utter something foolish, I sprang up and shoved the driver standing behind Gu Haochen. I shouted, there are only 2 of them. Hurry. Gu Haochen quickly regained his senses and turned around to wrest the knife from the driver's grasp. The 2 soon became entangled, and the knife clattered to the ground. I picked it up and severed the ropes binding me. Meanwhile, Gu Haochen managed to subdue the driver, delivering a powerful punch to his face. A bodyguard nearby raised his gun towards Gu Haochen, and I shouted, be careful, as I lunged to tackle him just as the gun fired. The bullet struck my arm, blood gushing forth. Ling Hua screamed in terror, no. Upon seeing my injury, Gu Haochen was taken aback, supporting me in disbelief. Ling Hua cried out, what are you doing? This is just a performance. How could you actually shoot? The bodyguard exchanged glances with the driver and said, I'm sorry, young Master Ling. 200,000 pails in comparison to 2 billion. Gu Haochen then grasped the situation, his face turning a shade of ashen as he glared at Ling Hua. Ling Hua, cowed, lowered his head, tears brimming in his eyes. The bullet had pierced my arm. It was not a fatal wound, but the continuous loss of blood caused my temperature to plummet, and my consciousness began to fade. Gu Haochen, moved by my self-sacrifice, tore a piece from his shirt to fashion a makeshift bandage and urged me to rest on his lap. I teased him, if I die, will you remember me like you do Tang Tang? Rarely, a flicker of panic crossed his features. Soon, I lost consciousness, and when I opened my eyes again, I found myself in a hospital room. The haphazard kidnapping had concluded in a messy fashion, which did not surprise me. I assumed both the driver and bodyguard had quietly departed from this world. Ling Hua sat by the bed, his eyes red-rimmed, and bitterly remarked, what was that about taking a bullet? You're so noble. I refuse to play with you anymore. After shedding a couple of tears, he added, I'm just glad you're okay, before exiting the room without a backward glance. Before long, Gu Haochen entered with a nurse. He apologized, stating that this incident would tarnish Ling Hua's reputation. Thus, it would not be reported to the authorities or made public, and he hoped I would not hold Ling Hua accountable. He patiently observed my reaction, as I was the sole victim in this perilous farce. I was indifferent. I smiled faintly and replied, as long as you are fine. Gu Haochen's expression shifted dramatically, revealing a mix of hesitation, fear, gratitude, and heartache. He had faced repeated setbacks in front of me, but now it seemed clarity dawned upon him, and he regained the upper hand. You feel something for me, he began. I did not respond, merely gazing at him in silence. He interpreted my silence as affirmation, raising an eyebrow and restoring the proud curve to his lips. Leaning down, he took my hand and said, once I inherit the fortune, we need not divorce. In the following 2 weeks, I recuperated at home, and Gu Haochen exhibited no peculiar behavior. The matriarch was pleased with the current dynamics between us, commenting that I was evidently fortunate, as Gu Haochen played and frolicked but held me dear in his heart. Her purse strings loosened, and Gu Haochen's company received billions in liquidity, gradually revitalizing its vigor. Setting aside personal matters, Gu Haochen's dedication to work was rather appealing. I often glimpsed him in the study or on the living room sofa, furrowing his brow over documents like a dashing, career-oriented man from a television drama. When he noticed my lingering gaze, he would offer me a smile. Speaking of which, he had transferred 40 million to me and casually gifted me a watch, which took me by surprise. He occasionally inquired about the healing of my wound and would sometimes help to ease the stiffness in my injured muscles, displaying a blend of possessiveness and intimacy in his actions. He was regaining his composure once more. The turning point arrived swiftly and quite naturally. Gu Haochen entered a sensitive phase. During my recovery, I had been resting alone in the master bedroom for half a month, while Gu Haochen occupied the second bedroom adjacent to the study. One early morning, I was awakened by the intense scent of cold spring pheromones. Upon opening my eyes, I found myself locked in a gaze with Gu Haochen. The moonlight outside remained frigid. Gu Haochen supported himself on either side of my pillow, his complexion flushed, eyes hazy, his breath hot, and his aggressive pheromones infiltrating my skin. I reached out to push him away, but he seized my wrist, his muscles taut, his strength magnified several times over. He leaned down, beads of sweat from his brow dripping onto my collarbone. Do you wish to mark me? I understood, a smile blooming at the corners of my lips. He intended to take advantage of my weakened state to consummate our union, ideally leading to my pregnancy, and later attribute it to this sensitive phase, offering an apology, an all-around win? Alas, alphas cannot mark alphas. He was now at the mercy of his instincts, leaving him at a disadvantage. I pulled him closer, kissing him passionately, allowing him to nibble on my lips while I retrieved a syringe from under the pillow and injected it into his neck. He slumped down, breathing heavily as he gazed at me, his eyes reddening. I could see the obsession reflected in his gaze, and I could no longer suppress the pheromones I had restrained for days. How unfortunate, I am also in a sensitive phase, I whispered into his ear. For 3 full days, we clawed at each other like trapped beasts, entwined in a primal dance. Our pheromones clashed in the air, the scent wafting through the cracks of the door enough to deter anyone from approaching. No one dared to open the door. Food and water were left by the threshold until, on the 4th day, hunger roused me, prompting me to leave Gu Haochen to replenish our depleted bodies. Only after I had given him some water did he regain consciousness, his immediate instinct to flee resulting in him tumbling off the bed and twisting his thigh. I summoned a family doctor. By now, the house staff was fully aware of our situation. Gu Haochen remained irate, disappearing for 2 weeks. When he returned to the Gu family villa, he unconsciously began spending time in the same room as me, frequently initiating contact, as if he had developed an attachment. He was pregnant. I accompanied him to the hospital for a checkup, and when we received the report, he was first bewildered, then sighed deeply, seemingly resigned to his fate. I never expected, he murmured, allowing me to embrace him, that I would emerge from Tang Tang's world in this manner. I gazed tenderly at the pale nape of his neck, bending down to kiss the faintly flushed skin behind his ear. Have you stepped out yet? But I do not wish for you to do so. Gu Haochen's pregnancy pleased my father, who lifted my ban and granted me permission to continue filming. My assistant and agent returned, bringing with them an assortment of gifts, including formula, bottles, toys, clothes, and diapers, cheerfully informing me that they were for my family. I took the gifts back to Gu Haochen, conveying the goodwill of those around me. Gu Haochen appeared somewhat taken aback but accepted the gifts, genuinely smiling in appreciation. That evening, I held him close, releasing pheromones to lull him to sleep. Hormones are potent forces. Gu Haochen became increasingly reliant on me, both physically and emotionally. Perhaps love blossomed as well. As the father of his child, as a result of 100 billion, and because I harbored feelings for him, I found myself in an advantageous position. His feelings for me were naturally deeper than those of others. Consequently, he began to seek me out, his demeanor softening, his affections profound. A marriage of convenience had transformed into genuine love. Everything had reached a state of perfection. Gu Haochen was 4 months pregnant. I needed to join the film crew in Changshan for a period, but Gu Haochen was reluctant, believing I should remain by his side during the pregnancy, fearing that my fame might lead to past mistakes. I reassured him, vowing that I would never betray him during this sensitive time, promising to return home to be with him until the birth after filming concluded. But Gu Haochen remained obstinate. I presented him with the actor's handbook. What do you have to worry about? You know the leading Omega I'll be acting alongside. He's your childhood friend. The handbook featured a striking mixed-race male Omega, with captivating features and eyes as blue as the ocean. Gu Haochen blurted out Wilian. He seemed to relax slightly, yet his concern appeared to deepen. That evening, I spent a considerable amount of time coaxing him, showering him with sweet nothings, persuading him to allow me into the production. After all, the grand performance I had orchestrated awaited Wilian's grand entrance. On the eve of filming, Gu Haochen escorted me to Changshan. The news of our impending union was well known within the industry. Nevertheless, the sight of a heavily pregnant alpha being so intimately close to his former rival astonished my manager, my assistant, and his childhood friend, the star Wilian. It's been years since we last met, and you are? Wilian stood before Gu Haochen, gazing down at his belly, unreservedly wrapping his arms around his waist, as if measuring his girth. Gu Haochen made no attempt to stop him. The Omega was half a head shorter than Gu Haochen, and the gesture resembled a tender embrace, the faint scent of papaya pheromones mingling with Gu Haochen's cool spring fragrance. Gain some weight? Gu Haochen scoffed at Wilian's observation, lifting his chin in good humor. You can't tell after 4 months? Oh my, you can actually get pregnant? Wilian playfully patted Gu Haochen's chest and biceps, seemingly confirming their presence. before standing on tiptoe and draping his arm over Gu Haochen's shoulder. If I had known you had that capability, you should have had a few for me, Dad. Gu Haochen shot him a sidelong glance. You've already transitioned into an Omega. Give up on that idea. Walian playfully punched Gu Haochen twice before finally redirecting his gaze to me. Apologies, Emperor Du, I grew up with Haochen, and we were quite familiar even before his transition. You wouldn't mind my physical contact with him, would you? I raised an eyebrow but smiled in response, of course not. Haochen's friends are my friends. He wouldn't mind. Gu Haochen patted Walian's waist, but you, keep an eye on him on set. His romantic prospects are too abundant. If you see anyone, just fend them off for me. Walian was taken aback, reluctantly lowering his hands. You want me to? Exactly, Lian. Aren't you the official pairing in the drama? Gu Haochen grasped his hand, earnestly instructing, during breaks, meals, and while reviewing the script, you are to be the only Omega by his side during this time. While Ian protested, he'll find it bothersome. He'll be more than willing. I nudged Walian. Teacher Walian's acting prowess is well regarded in the industry. He recently won an award, and I am most eager to learn from him. Walian's expression brightened slightly, and he finally nodded. Gu Haochen patted his shoulder. The child has appointed you as a godfather. Take good care of my grandson. Once Gu Haochen had finished his instructions with Walian, he departed with a sense of relief. After all, he was a CEO. When I was not by his side, he immersed himself in work with the family doctor and nursing staff on standby. Fortunately, his pregnancy symptoms were not severe. As an alpha expecting, he required 3 progesterone injections daily, numerous examinations, a plethora of supplements, and sometimes even 4 fluids. During a group dinner, the family doctor sent me a photo of Gu Haochen's swollen calves, indicating a lack of pheromones and that he had begun experiencing sleepless nights. Meanwhile, I turned off my phone, watching a slightly tipsy Walian commandeer the drink intended for the third Omega, asserting, "This is my brother's person. My brother's people are under my protection, so don't think of getting him drunk." Walian downed the drink, then turned to find the second Omega practically perched on my lap, swiftly claiming the spot for himself and playfully lifting the second Omega's chin. "Hey, little one, this spot is taken." The second Omega sulked. "Emperor Du, look at him." I noticed Walian's unsteady posture, wrapping my arm around his waist to shield him from the Omega. "Apologies, but I am currently under Lian's care." Walian stiffened momentarily before relaxing against me, seemingly pleased, letting out a soft hum. I noticed someone in the distance lifting their phone to capture the moment, and I smirked, subtly leaning my chin against Walian's neck. After the gathering concluded, I requested leave from the director and purchased a ticket back to Beijing. Upon entering the Gu family villa, I specifically instructed the butler and housekeepers not to inform Gu Haochen, merely stating that I wished to surprise him. Not finding him in the master bedroom, I wandered through various rooms, yet still saw no sign of him. I inquired with the butler, who confirmed that Gu Haochen had not left the house. Suddenly struck by inspiration, I headed to the cloakroom. There, indeed, lay Gu Haochen amidst a pile of clothes, my clothes. He had formed a nest out of them, curling up with a large coat. With a low body fat percentage, his 6-month belly was already quite prominent, and perhaps due to heightened skin sensitivity, he had switched to silk loungewear, his calves appearing swollen like radishes. I had not anticipated him to nest an alpha, drawn to the pheromones of another alpha. I gently approached him, gazing at his weary face, observing the furrowed brow that remained even in slumber. A pang of longing struck my heart. "Haochen," I called softly. He sleepily opened his eyes, saw my face, and then closed them again, seemingly mistaking me for an apparition, remaining still. I bent to lift him, cradling him as I made my way to the bed. As he drifted between consciousness and unconsciousness, he finally awoke, wrapping his arms around my neck and nuzzling his nose against my neck, greedily inhaling the scent of my skin. Upon detecting Walian's pheromone scent on me, Gu Haochen abruptly came to his senses. He lifted his gaze to meet mine, his already pallid complexion paling further. "What's wrong?" I feigned ignorance as I laid him gently on the bed, massaging his calves while releasing pheromones to soothe him. "You spent the day with Walian?" My expression remained calm. "Yes, your childhood friend was rather chivalrous, shielding me from quite a bit of alcohol. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to return to see you sober." Gu Haochen seemed to relax slightly, but noticing his distracted demeanor, I teasingly asked, "Are you jealous?" His face suddenly flushed crimson, visibly reddening like ripe fruit. He moved his lips, seemingly wanting to argue, but quickly recalled that he had been stripped of my clothes, rendering any protest futile. Thus, he merely uttered tch. Such a rare occurrence. I leaned down to kiss him. My body belongs solely to you. Would you like to verify? After checking for half the night, I had released enough pheromones to Gu Haochan, and we fell asleep in each other's arms. The following morning, I was unceremoniously kicked out of bed, as he brandished his phone, glaring at me with indignation, demanding I look at the screen. The display showcased that day's news. The headline reading, "Drama CP takes their act off-screen." The content was obscured from my view, but the opening featured a photo of Yaoi seated on my lap, with me embracing him in an intimate manner, my chin resting against his neck. Explain, Gu Haochan trembled with fury. This must have been taken during yesterday's dinner gathering. I yawned, scratching my head as I rose, still audaciously wrapping my arms around him. There should be another person on the left side of this photo. He was bothering me and served as my shield. Gu Haochan pushed me away. He's an Omega. How could he possibly sit on you as a shield? My expression darkened. What do you mean by that? This was the first time I had shown him a glimmer of displeasure since our marriage, and he appeared momentarily taken aback, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. I coldly inquired, "Do you doubt us?" I may be flawed, but I have never engaged in any disloyal affairs. And even if you suspect me, how can you think that way about Lian, who is your childhood friend and has been tasked with looking after me on your behalf? Lian? Gu Haochan seized upon the crux of the matter. You call him Lian? Don't you call him Lian as well? Gu Haochan's voice rose suddenly. How long have I known him compared to how long you've known him? I felt a headache coming on, rubbing my temples. I've been filming for 2 consecutive days. And after the dinner, I rushed 3 hours by car and 2 hours by plane to see you, not to listen to your nonsensical ramblings. Gu Haochan sensed the fatigue and annoyance in my tone, and for a moment, his emotions spiraled out of control, his eyes reddening. I did not comfort him. I waited for him to regain his composure before he walked over and embraced me. I don't even know what's wrong with me. I'm just feeling very anxious, he explained, burying his head against my neck. I looked down at him. He had lost weight, his collarbones more pronounced than ever, his neck hanging weakly, a rare display of fragility. You're simply experiencing hormonal chaos, causing you to overthink. I reassured him, releasing pheromones to soothe him, my hand repeatedly caressing the nape of his neck. If it truly bothers you, I won't have any contact with Lian outside of work. Gu Haochan slowly shook his head. I'm the one overthinking. He then added in a soft voice, I wasn't like this before. I prepared an elaborate breakfast for Gu Haochan, accompanying him as he ate, noting the dishes he consumed more of, teaching Antli the recipes, and instructing her to ensure that Gu Haochan gained some weight. Gu Haochan wanted me to accompany him to his prenatal checkup, but I declined, claiming my director would be upset due to my taking leave. Before rushing back to the set, I kissed his forehead, promising to return as soon as I had the chance and urging him to take care of himself. He personally fastened the watch on my wrist, reminding me to return home on time. He was anxious yet reluctant to show me a cold shoulder whenever I returned home. As long as I coaxed him, he would allow me to dote on him. I tended to him meticulously, yet I often displayed impatience when faced with his questions. His emotions fluctuated greatly. He became increasingly dependent on me, unable to sleep without my presence, his hair falling out in clumps. He cried, pleading for me to withdraw from the filming crew, and when I refused, he smashed everything within reach. Upon hearing news of an actor being injured on set, he begged me for a string of protective beads. Ironically, Lian ended up getting injured while filming, suffering an arm injury, and consequently obtained the protective beads. When Gu Haochan saw Lian lying in a hospital bed wearing those beads, he could no longer contain himself and stormed into the hospital with his caregiver and doctor. In the ward, he discovered something even more devastating. Lian bore my pheromones. The atmosphere in the hospital room fell deathly silent in the face of his ashen expression. Lian stammered an explanation, claiming that he had unexpectedly entered a heat phase on set, and the temporary marking had been arranged by the director, with all staff present as witnesses. Gu Haochan, not allowing him to finish, threw a punch. The situation became exceedingly awkward. Former childhood friends, one an alpha, the other an omega, were now at odds over a man, a situation that seemed laughable to anyone else. Lian, losing control, shouted, You hit me? You hit me for him? You never even hit me for Du Chutang. I pulled Gu Haochan into my embrace. Haochan! He shivered at my call, his reddened eyes turning to me. I sighed, Stop this nonsense. Lian and I are entirely innocent. Innocent, Gu Haochen retorted, tears streaming down his face. He raised his phone, and a voice crackled through the speaker. Lian, how about we give it a try? I try what? Lian, our pheromones are quite compatible. Why not resolve it mutually? Rest assured, I only regard you as a good brother. After all, Haochen is nearly 8 months along, and anything more might harm him. Then came my laughter. In that recording, I neither agreed nor disagreed. Everyone was stunned. I pushed Gu Haochen away, glaring at him in anger. You were eavesdropping on me? Gu Haochen remained non-committal. Where did you hide the listening device? I looked down at the watch he always fastened on me before I returned to Xiangshan, my anger flaring, and I forcefully removed it, hurling it to the floor. Glass shards scattered, causing Gu Haochen to take a step back. I don't doubt you. He stammered. I just feel he might do something. He has done so in the past. Lian seized upon this point, exclaiming, what do you think I would do? The engagement is between you and me. If it weren't for your daily antics, how could I possibly be involved with anyone else? Gu Haochen was taken aback, fearing that I would be upset upon hearing the word engagement, and hurriedly explained, that was just something said in jest when we were children. You scoundrel! Lian cursed vehemently. Why didn't you say that when we were being ambiguous? Is it because you think others are easy to bully? Is Du Chutang easy to bully? Gu Haochen's expression changed drastically. How dare you mention Tang Tang? You are the one who caused his demise. Lian, infuriated, hurled a pillow at him. No, it was you. Lian screamed at the top of his lungs. Everything you are suffering now is merely what happened to Du Chutang, and it is now happening to you. Gu Haochen looked as if struck by lightning, his lips trembling. He turned to look at my expression, reaching out to pull me closer. I brushed his hand away, revealing my weary expression. I never imagined you were this kind of person. Gu Haochen, you have disappointed me deeply. Gu Haochen's body trembled. The last vestige of color drained from his face, making him appear as if he might shatter at any moment. Was it painful? This was the conclusion I had prepared. Once you obtain the inheritance, let's get a divorce. I uttered my final line. After the child is born, I will provide you with monthly child support. Gu Haochen staggered back as if struck by lightning, collapsing into the chair behind him. His face turned pale, gasping for breath as if he could not draw in enough air, tears streaming down his face, his shoulders shaking uncontrollably. No, Zhizhua. You cannot. I turned to leave the hospital room when suddenly, a scream echoed from behind. Blood. I turned back to find Gu Haochen had fainted, blood seeping from between his legs. The scene before me awakened my memory. I froze for a moment, then rushed over to cradle him in my arms, sprinting towards the emergency room. Doctor! The hospital's timely intervention saved the child. Gu Haochen lay on the hospital bed, ashen-faced, staring blankly at the ceiling, a white blanket covering his abdomen and legs, his emaciated wrist revealing blue veins beneath his skin. I sat by his bedside, peeling an apple, the skin curling long and uninterrupted beneath the knife. You're still here. Gu Haochen suddenly spoke. I was taken aback. What? The child, he said, pausing before adding, without the child, you wouldn't gain the inheritance. We won't get a divorce. The fruit knife slipped and sliced open my thumb. I gazed at the blood droplets oozing from my fingertip, a sense of unease washing over me. Do you love me? I inquired. Gu Haochen's eyes reddened, his voice stuttering. You are asking me this now. How peculiar, I interrupted. You can fall in love due to hormones, a serendipitous encounter, a resemblance, or a debt of gratitude for saving your life. You claim to love so easily, yet you always create such grand spectacles. Even in films, they could scarcely capture the depth of your affections. Yet your love is never devoid of calculations. You grow weary, seek novelty, and may stray. You are undeniably callous, yet you persist in masquerading as a fervent lover. Gu Haochen was momentarily stunned, tears glistening on his lashes, refusing to fall. If you had clarified to Tang Tang from the outset that you merely sought a dalliance, I said, plunging the knife into the peeled apple and offering it to Gu Haochen, he would not have perished. A lightning bolt of realization struck Gu Haochen's mind, and my features became strikingly clear before him. He asked, who is Du Chutang to you? Meeting his gaze, I replied, my brother. All expressions fled from his face. This is the essence of a classic tragedy. A young scion of wealth, concealing his identity, embarks on a romance with a humble beta from the slums. Their love ignites amidst hormonal chaos, flourishing in mutual support, only to inevitably wither. In a foreign land, with only each other for solace. Yet the affluent heir must ultimately return to his own social sphere, while the beta gradually loses the very foundation of his existence, his spirit diminishing. Gu Haochen, with his prestigious lineage and handsome visage, was never lacking in romantic prospects, be it friends from his elite circle, a cousin who covertly tormented Du Chutang, or childhood companions bound by a mock engagement. At that time, Du Chutang gambled everything for their love, following Gu Haochen back to his homeland, and thus became anxious and insecure. Having witnessed Gu Haochen's genuine affection, Du Chutang swiftly discerned Gu Haochen's emotional detachment. Gu Haochen would vanish for weeks, feigning overtime to attend singles gatherings, choose to spend Du Chutang's birthday with a sick cousin, and drunkenly embrace childhood friend Wei Lian. After a tumultuous 6 months, Du Chutang discovered he was with child. No longer in denial, he confided in Gu Haochen, yearning for another chance for them both. Upon hearing the news, Gu Haochen seemed less than thrilled, yet he took care of Du Chutang with meticulous attention. However, the fundamental discord between them remained unresolved. Gu Haochen's impatience grew. He professed to have been faithful for 4 years, enduring immense pressure, asserting that even with nothing, he desired to walk alongside Du Chutang until the end, insisting he could not let the Gu family falter under his watch. Where could you possibly find someone better than me? Had you never met me, you might have found yourself with some drunken wretch, a thief, a junkie, or a vagrant from the slums. Du Chutang was left utterly disillusioned. It became clear that Gu Haochen had never regarded him as worthy. Composed, he withdrew without uttering another word, leaving. Yet when they met again, Du Chutang had become nothing more than a handful of ashes. A miscarriage had gone awry, and he perished upon the hospital bed. Gu Haochen was rendered desolate, impossible. Tang Tang was an orphan. He had no brother. He was the illegitimate child of the Du family, born from my father's youthful dalliance abroad with an omega from a fleeting romance. His mother sent a letter to the Du family before her death, which I received. Only I within the entire Du family knew of his existence. Gu Haochen's eyes brimmed with tears. Why didn't you bring him home? If he is a child of the Du family, you think you could end up together? I was uncertain what expression crossed my face. Perhaps it was one of bitter irony, which caused Gu Haochen to swallow the latter part of his sentence. Indeed, it was you, hopelessly and irreparably you. You would never attribute any fault to yourself. In the 3 months following Tang Tang's departure, Gu Haochen drank himself into a state of gastric hemorrhage. In the 4th month, he drove into the sea. In the 5th month, he overdosed on sleeping pills and was rushed for gastric lavage, while the elderly matriarch wept in the hospital. He ceased self-harm and began seeking replacements one after another. He believed he and Tang Tang had been in love, and that Tang Tang had left him with such finality, even choosing to terminate their child, discarding his own life. Perhaps he had been preparing to detach. Yet suddenly he felt as though a gaping hole was ripped into his chest, leaving him with a pall of despair, more akin to a funeral shroud than a beacon of hope. You did this intentionally. He finally regained his composure. He recalled the anguish of that time, uncertain which pain surpassed the other in severity. It was as if he had died and resurrected, his face now etched with a cold, spectral pallor. You will exact vengeance on him, a revenge of likeness. I remained silent, watching as icy flames ignited in his eyes. Du Zhizhu, I will not grant you your wish. Gu Haochen departed from Xiangshan. I was unaware of his actions, but Wei Lian was soon embroiled in numerous scandals of infidelity, subjected to widespread condemnation online, leading to an emotional breakdown and an abrupt exit from the entertainment industry before even leaving the hospital. The filming of a project was abruptly disrupted, necessitating a hasty recast, and the entire crew scrambled to reshoot scenes amidst the chaos. My assistant was oblivious to the specifics but suspected that Gu Haochen was exceedingly furious. He suggested I take a few days off to placate him, fearing that if Gu Haochen's anger escalated, he might abandon the child. I reassured my assistant that it was of no consequence, resolutely continuing with the reshoots. Eventually, all crew members began to cast hesitant glances my way. The director remarked, I've come to realize you are rather callous. I blinked and smiled at him. You've only just realized? Filming concluded a month later. Just as we wrapped, news of a monumental upheaval emerged from Beijing. Firstly, the matriarch of the Gu family was gravely ill and hospitalized. Secondly, on the very same day the matriarch was admitted, Gu Haochen delivered the baby via cesarean section at 36 weeks, a healthy baby boy. I did not have the opportunity to bid farewell to the matriarch one last time, nor was I permitted to re-enter the Gu family villa. Gu Haochen's lawyer presented me with a divorce agreement. I insisted on discussing the divorce with Gu Haochen in person. I would not sign without his presence. The lawyer made a phone call and then led me into Gu Haochen's company. In the same presidential office, Gu Haochen appeared intent on eradicating any trace of parenthood's impact on him. Having skipped the customary confinement period, his face pale, clad in a suit, sitting straight-backed behind his desk, embodying the archetype of a business elite, hands clasped, coldly regarding me. Yet behind him stood a crib, and within its canopy, a tiny figure waved its arms and legs. For a moment, I was at a loss for words. I never expected you to actually give birth. 1 billion, Gu Haochen scoffed. I have no reason to sacrifice for your sake. I nodded, inquiring, did you persuade the matriarch to amend her will? Indeed, she was so desperate for a grandchild. I had a lawyer notarize her will at her bedside, ensuring that all her inheritance is to be solely inherited by me. You have no claim to it. I could tell Gu Haochen had long contemplated delivering this message. His demeanor was haughty, as if he had endured silent restraint for over a month, eagerly awaiting this moment to turn the tables, to witness my futile pursuit of vengeance and hollow sense of justice. He wanted me to recognize that he had lost nothing at all. Neither Tang Tang nor I could shake his resolve. Yet he failed to comprehend that I had never sought justice. An alpha, who is also a progenitor, stands as my adversary yet has given rise to my lineage. He remains oblivious to the profound difficulty I experience in witnessing his demeanor as he sits there. You would do well to refrain from such actions, I gently advised him. We had previously agreed upon a division of 7-3 in my favor. He merely curled his lip in disdain. Get lost. Thus, I lunged forward, seizing the back of his head before fiercely pressing my lips against his. He was taken aback, for he beheld my grin, revealing 8 teeth, a smile so wide it contorted the muscles of my face. I informed him this is far from over. Firstly, the elderly lady's immense inheritance is, in fact, a negative sum. Only a few 100 million remain liquid in her accounts. Secondly, Gu Haochen inherited her entire estate, along with all her debts. Furthermore, the Gu family had benefited from the Du family years prior, documented in black and white with promissory notes, which have since accumulated into a substantial amount. Moreover, when consolidating the Gu family's total assets, it merely suffices to cover 70% of their debts. Should he attempt to monopolize it all, bankruptcy is his only fate. Additionally, personal bankruptcy will not affect his spouse or children. I remain the esteemed Du actor, young Master Du, while Gu Haochen shall become a discredited individual, Mr. Gu. This indeed is the conclusion. Gu Haochen explored numerous methods to delay the downfall of the Gu family. Everything that could be sold has been liquidated, and he could not procure any loans. He suddenly realized that he was not only devoid of family but had also lost all friends. Overwhelmed, he lacked the inclination to engage in divorce proceedings with me. On the day of the Gu family's bankruptcy, I purchased the Gu villa and arranged for his return. He had no alternative. He had lost all, with creditors relentlessly pursuing him. To outsiders, it merely appeared as a transfer of assets between spouses, yet only the parties involved, Mr. Gu, understood the true essence of the situation. He contemplated taking on multiple jobs to assert his pride, yet I confined him. The child remained under his care, surrounded by the nurse, family doctor, and caregiver I had employed, but his cousin had to seek my permission to visit him. Should he approach the Gu villa's entrance, 3 bodyguards in black would politely prevent his entry. He protested, caused a scene, and struggled, yet I possessed countless methods to compel him to fulfill his spousal duties. It was then that he recalled the very same actions he had once inflicted upon Tang Tang. Ultimately, despair consumed him. This is a flawless act of revenge. The bond between Doing Di and Tang Tang resonates with deep emotion, he remarked, reclining on the living room sofa, his long legs askew, applauding me. What do you intend to do next? Cause my accidental demise or let me succumb to stomach cancer? I considered that indeed I ought to do so. Yet, Tang Tang is alive. Upon hearing this, Gu Haochen immediately sat up, his eyes widening in astonishment. The child is indeed gone. His fake death was a means to escape you. I scrutinized his expression intently. I have sent him abroad. He has married a university professor. I contributed to the wedding gift last month. Gu Haochen blinked heavily, tears cascading down his cheeks. He covered his face and wept bitterly. I allowed him to cry for 20 minutes until his voice became hoarse, and he gazed at me with eyes reddened by tears. May I see him again? He has declared he wishes to never meet you again. Gu Haochen gasped for breath, sobbing quietly. After a moment he asked, why did you tell me? I replied, in truth, I was the first to witness you playing the guitar, 100 yuan and a bouquet of flowers. It was I who instructed him to present them. Gu Haochen's sobs ceased abruptly, the two stifled sounds becoming peculiar. I continued, it was I who proactively broached the subject of this engagement with the elderly lady. She consented, believing I could be your counterpart. Gu Haochen, in disbelief, asked, do you love me? I am uncertain. I am a person with antisocial personality disorder. I smiled at Gu Haochen. I first encountered you at a banquet when you snatched a chicken leg. It is rare for someone to leave such an impression on me. Gu Haochen gasped sharply. Duingdi's life is but a performance, all mere acting. I embraced him tightly. What, then, constitutes affection? I too remain unsure. I find you intriguing. Thus, I willingly accepted my brother's request for revenge. In exchange, he signed a waiver of his inheritance rights. My feelings of love and hate for you may very well stem from a reflection of my emotions towards Tang Tang. Yet I can assert with certainty that you evoke a myriad of feelings within me, both good and bad. How utterly fascinating. Gu Haochen took a prolonged moment to formulate a response, ultimately uttering, you are insufferable. I do not require your love. You will forever cherish only yourself. I entwined my fingers with his, our hands locked together. But I shall bind you to my side, ensuring you are incapable of causing harm to others. Selfish, cold, irresponsible, deceitful, manipulative, ruthless, and contemptuous of life, these are the traits I embody. Born into privilege without my mother, I might have descended into far worse depths. I show great care for Tang Tang, yet I also make it abundantly clear that he must not reveal my existence to outsiders, nor shall I afford him the opportunity to vie for family assets. I treat each of my lovers with kindness, for without them, I would not resemble humanity in the slightest. I can adeptly assume various roles and possess the emotional reflexes to manage daily life, yet the darkness within me must find its dwelling. Affections in this world manifest in myriad forms. I relish the sensation of dismantling Gu Haochen, only to mold him anew, even if it results in a peculiar amalgamation. You are a scoundrel, and you are no different. You are truly repugnant. May I forever be a source of disgust to you. I kissed him, and he reciprocated. The end. Thank you for listening. Until we meet again in the next tale.